everybody, it's Judy Clock, your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Middletown, Virginia, coming to you today with another tutorial. And you might be noticing that with my pear eyewear, I have my snowflake frames on. We're scheduled to get some wintry weather this weekend, so I'm hopeful we get some snow finally. I want just a little bit. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Now, growing up, I don't know about you, but my mom, she was a sewer. She made lots of beautiful things, clothing, draperies, upholstery, furniture, like slip covers. She was just an incredible seamstress. But we always had a rag bag, a bag full of just, bits and pieces of things that you could use either as rags or if you had like a little project you wanted to do to try something out. Well, as a paper crafter, we end up with little bits and pieces of different papers that we can eat. Most of us probably throw them away. My daughter wishes I would throw most of them away, but I do tend to save some of those little pieces because you never know what you can create with them. So today I'm going to share with you some ways to use those bits and pieces of your paper scraps in maybe some out-of-the-box ways to create pretty cards. So let's go ahead. Let's take a look at what I'm going to work on today on camera with you. And then I'm going to show you a few other alternatives of what you can do with your paper scraps. You ready to get started? Let's go. All right, here we go. So this is the card we're going to be working on today. Now, if you're like me, you always struggle with the masculine cards. It doesn't have to be hard. This one's a pretty easy. It's all straight cuts almost. And you'll notice I've kind of layered. I've used the textured note dies and I've layered two of them together. And this one, I kind of put some strips, some little strips that I had after I trimmed down some cardstock. I have these strips laying around, so I just put them on to that piece of basic white. Then I cut them with a die and I ran them through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss with an embossing folder to kind of give it a little bit of texture. And there we made our card. So let's take a look at this one and see, and then we'll show you some other ways to use your scraps. So again, all of these measurements will be in my inspiration library. You can gain access when you subscribe to my email. There's not a lot of measurements for these because obviously we're using scraps, but I'm using, these are going to be standard, A2 cards. So you'll know the general measurements. I'm using Lost Lagoon for my card base. I always put a nice little piece of basic white on the inside to just kind of finish it off. And then I have a piece of DSP. This is from the new Nature Walk designer series paper. It's really pretty. I like it. It's definitely much more of a masculine feel. So I think that will, pardon me, work well for those of you that want to do some more masculine cards. All right, so we're going to add this to our card front. All right, now I've already pre-cut one of our layers here. That's going to be the layer that our paper scraps piece is going to sit on top of. But I'm just going to leave that there for a minute. I'm going to put that aside. I've also pre-cut a little one for our sentiment. And I'm going to use, for this card, a sentiment from the Fabulous Sayings. This is the January product of the month. Excuse me, I don't know why. I'm coughing today. This is $5 with a $75 or more purchase. And I have to tell you, I love this font. You'll see it on the birthday card we did. I used for that happy birthday. It's just stunning. So anyway, that is what we're going to be using for this card also. So let me just put this aside for a minute. I have a piece of basic white here. This is probably about, 4¼ by about 2½ inches. And I don't know exactly, but I can tell you exactly. It is 2½ by 4¼ I had to make sure it was big enough to fit my textured note dies. So that'll work just fine. All right. So I've got here some scraps of Lost Lagoon, Pretty Peacock, Pecan Pie, and now these are a little bit shorter. So I'm going to go in the vertical position as opposed to the horizontal position. Doesn't matter what color you start with. I think I'm going to start, though, with not Lost Lagoon. Excuse me. And you can either use liquid glue for this, or you can use the Stampin' Seal. It's up to you. Now you can start, so you can either start right on the edge, or you can go a little bit off. It's up to you. And there's absolutely no rhyme or reason to how I'm putting these on. I'm just going to butt them up really close to each other. Okay, and some of them are wider, some of them are narrower. Again, these are all just scraps, so it doesn't really matter how big they are or how small they are. We're just going to go ahead and put all of these on there. We're just going to continue along until we get scraps all across our little piece of basic white. Okay. There we go. And you'll notice I'm using my silicone sheet because I don't want it to stick to my paper underneath. All right, one more. I think we have room for one more piece of our pecan pie. All right, that is perfect. So now if you wanted to, you could go ahead and you could trim this down. I think I might. I mean, we're going to die cut it, so it doesn't really matter, but I don't want all that excess Stampin' Seal to get onto my machine, onto my platforms. I'm just going to kind of trim this down a little bit because now you see it's all sticking to my scissor, and I'm going to have to clean my scissor later. That's okay. Everything is fixable. All right, so now we're going to bring in, if I don't drop it, I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss. And I'm going to use this textured note die. Now this one will, and I'm dropping everything, will fit in with the, it nests inside the other one that we've already cut. And you'll notice I've got here a piece of tape or 3M tape. I'm just going to put that down. You can see this, you can turn this around. That just helps to hold my die in place so it doesn't go all wonky. And I'm going to actually move this down because I want to make sure that I get some of that pecan pie on each end. I'm just going to fix where I put my die. Oh, that is not the cover I want. All right, we're going to go ahead and roll this through. All right. All right, we've got that cut. Ooh, there we go. Got that cut. Now I didn't like how this looked, so I wanted to add some textures. So I picked one of our embossing folders, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to emboss it with an embossing folder just to add some texture. So it's a 3D embossing folder, so I need plate 1, my embossing folder, and plate 4. And I make sure I always put the hinge in the direction in which you're feeding it through. Okay. And now, there we go. Just move this out of the way. And now we've got some texture on our piece. So let's go ahead and finish our card. So we've got our card base. We've got our 2 pieces, our textured note dies. Let's go ahead and layer those up. For this, I'm going to use liquid glue because for some reason, my embossed pieces seem to rip much more easily when I use Stampin' Seal when they're embossed. So I'm going to just go ahead and use some liquid glue. Plus it gives us a little bit of extra time to make sure we get that piece just where we want it. But how do you like that? Right, kind of nice. Now this I'm just going to put on flat because we're going to pop up our sentiment. Okay. So I'm just going to try to center this on the card front. Okay, nope. I'm just going to eyeball it. That looks pretty good. All right, then I'm going to use some Lost Lagoon ink. And we're going to stamp just because. we've got our just because. Let's close that up. Now on this one, because my banner was so long, I wrapped my linen thread around it and tied it. This one I'm just going to add it as a little bow at the end. So I'm just going to add a couple of dimensionals on here, because we love some dimensionals. Maybe one more. Let's put one more in the middle. Okay. Just going to add that right in the middle. And now those scraps actually kind of give that card a little bit of a little flair, a little bit of some flavor, because you've got those different colors that they all work well together. And you can just use whatever scraps you have on hand. If you're using a designer series paper, you can pick out colors from the designer series paper. If you're working for, so you'll see I did on one of the other ones I did one that was very masculine, and then I did the same one in different colors, just so you can see how just changing up the colors can make a big difference in how the card feels. So I'm just going to put this little bow on with a glue dot. And because this is more masculine, I'm really not going to put any other bling on it. I'm just going to add our little linen thread there, a little bow, and there we have a card where we just used some of our scraps to go ahead and create that layer. We've just glued them down on a piece of basic white, die cut it, and then embossed it to add a little bit more texture. So that's card number one. Let's look at some of the other ones that I've done just using scraps from my paper scrap stash. So same thing, I just kind of glued some different strips on the rainbow, like rainbow strips on a piece of basic white. This was like a 3 1/4 inch square, and I just cut it in half. And then look at that gorgeous happy birthday from that Fabulous Sayings stamp set. Isn't that gorgeous? Don't you just love that font? I sure do. All right, so that was another one. Then remember I said I used one in sort of the same masculine colors. So I've got Misty Moonlight, Moody, Mossy Meadow, and Pecan Pie. And I just used those thin strips and created candles. We had the little flame from the sweet jar. I just kind of drew the wick freehand with just a basic black marker. That is a blending pen. Here's my black marker. I just did a little straight line for the wick. So that was one, and I changed it up. I did the same thing, except I used Pretty in Pink, Peach Pie, and Petunia Pop, and I added some Wink of Stella to make those candles shimmer, but the same idea. So again, just from scraps that I just had laying around in my scrap pile. Just made some candles, cute little birthday card, easy peasy. But what about all those scraps of designer series paper? Well, we've got ideas for those too. So this was, I had a whole bunch of different pieces, not anything really enough to do a full card with. So I just picked 3 different pieces that I had, put them on a card front, picked a color that was going to go with pretty much all of them. I just chose some Secret C, and just those 3 scraps right on the front, die cut a little hello, and there you have a very simple card, but it's really, I think, kind of pretty with those different designer series papers on there. All right, again, have more scraps, cut them out with the heartfelt hexagon punch, all different scraps, glued them on, and then just used a solid color cardstock in the hexagon shape to create the sentiment strip, or the sentiment label. So again, just another way to use those little bits and pieces of your cardstock, of your designer series paper to create another card front. Again, none of these pieces were really big enough that I could do anything with, but they were big enough for me to just kind of punch out that shape and layer them all together. Excuse me, to create that interesting pattern. And this one I think is probably my favorite. This is the What About Love? It's new. I forget the name of it. This is in the new mini. Made with love. I said, what about love? It's made with love. So again, I had a whole bunch of random sized pieces. I glued them down onto a piece of basic white cardstock, and then I just die cut some heart shapes, and then I embossed them with the new hearts embossing folder. Again, I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's one of the new ones in the catalog. So again, a very simple card. None of these pieces by themselves was really large enough for me to do anything with. They were very odd shaped from other projects that I have made. But when you put them all on the piece, and you'll see here, they're all different sizes. When you put them on a piece of basic white and then die cut them, it becomes something different. So like I said, all different shapes, all different sizes. Probably wouldn't have used them other than doing it like this, where I put them on the paper, die cut them, then I embossed them. And I just did that. It kind of just helps smooth out the lines in between where they all kind of just butt up against each other. I just think it makes it look a little bit more polished. So that is it. I hope that if you have your scraps, you'll try some of these different techniques. It's really kind of a lot of fun what you can do with your paper scraps. You can create things in new ways. And, especially if you're a beginner or you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of paper, believe me, once you are in the cult, it's like the mafia. Once you're into card making, there's no getting out. But as you build up, your stash of supplies, you'll obviously have different kinds of paper that you can use. But in the meantime, these little strips, just like this, are perfect for creating a different look. So hold on to your scraps and get creative with them. Think outside the box and think of new ways to use your scraps. That's it for me, everybody. Thanks so much. I'll be back next week. Have a great weekend. And if you're in the Northeast or wherever you are in the country, watch out for the snow. It's coming. Bye.